hope you're doing well. My presentation today is on a curriculum analysis of Ohio's learning standards for Algebra 1. This is being done for Franciscan University's graduate education program with EDU 511 course called Curriculum for Dr. Ash, and my name is Brittany Depew. So to get started with this curriculum analysis, we're going to go over a few sections, including foundations, organization, content, assessment, and critique. So we're going to start off with foundations. So I went ahead and did some research on the Ohio learning standards for math, and I found a fact sheet about the revision process of the standards. And in this revision process, it begins with the State Board of Education. They go ahead and imply that some revisions need to be made. And once that's decided, the educators go ahead and they begin this draft. Once these educators that are highly qualified have went ahead and made revisions they feel is necessary, they go ahead and resubmit that to the State Board of Education for approval and also implementation. They take into consideration surveys from the community members, colleges, and local businesses, and what they need from students to be able to do once they go ahead and graduate. So continuing on with foundation, the goal of the revised standards is to better prepare students for college and careers, as well as define what students should understand and be able to do in their study of mathematics. So I went ahead and found that actually located in the standards document. Also, the standards are listed by grade level and do not in any way dictate accommodations that may be needed for students to succeed in the classroom, such as assistive devices. So that is also stated right in the standards document on the Ohio Department of Education website. Also, I have here, it says, according to Armstrong, the standards provided is a referent you use as you consider potential modifications to serve the needs of your own learners. Next, I want to go ahead and talk a little bit about the organization of the curriculum. So the math curriculum is separated by academic subject curriculum design, as is traditional education courses. They're also further separated by grade level and specific math areas, such as the content I'm covering, Algebra 1. And this can be covered in high school levels or in the 8th grade level, depending on the school that you are in. So the content standards are further separated in a part-to-whole sequencing form. And they also have 5 critical areas of focus listed that are built upon continuously from grade level to grade level. Some of these critical areas acknowledges continuance of topics in the next level math courses, such as formal work being completed in regard to like functions in algebra. Throughout the standards, vocabulary that is used is heavily worded with Bloom's taxonomy vocabulary, which is great and something that we can go ahead and notice right away throughout the document. So the action verbs begin the statements just like the skills section of the curriculum map as being specific, observable, and measurable. So the document provided with the Algebra 1 standards devotes a section to standards for mathematical practices that is just like the enduring understanding section of the curriculum map that we went ahead and did in class. These 8 standards are utilized in all of the math courses, so it kind of helps bring everything full circle. Okay, let's go ahead and continue our conversation and start discussing content. So with the content, the objectives did reflect cognitive learning domain that focuses more on the thinking processes. The levels and vocabulary utilized by the cognitive domain is similar to that of Bloom's taxonomy, with levels of remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating. So when I went ahead and reviewed the Algebra 1 mathematics standards, the real-life applications were scarcely listed under any sections or the standards themselves. Also, career opportunities were not listed throughout standards. Just that the content would allow for further career and college readiness was kind of the only thing listed. Instructional time guidelines were not provided, as well as suggested teaching strategies in that particular document. But the standards throughout the section for Algebra 1 was described as being interconnected after each new block of knowledge. So how they separated it was one whole section does nothing but focus on expressions. Another whole section does nothing but focus on functions. When I continued to go ahead and dig on the website, I was able to find another document that actually discussed the model curriculum. Some instructional strategies were listed. The document still did not provide a timeline, but it did provide some examples that could be used for class, as well as some misconceptions and also career connections. So as I stated, some real-world applications were provided. These were provided through discussion points, various examples for the teacher to go ahead and use in the classroom, and also further explanations provided for the teachers. And I found those really beneficial, as maybe if as a new teacher coming in you weren't sure exactly where to start. Those explanations definitely gave you a starting point to begin your unit. There were 21st century skills that were included in this document, and it really stressed technology. Some of the technology that was included was some algebra software on the computers, as well as using some graphing calculators in the classroom, and also other software like spreadsheets. Problem solving skills and critical thinking skills were also emphasized, which is under, the 21st century learning skills that we want our students to know. Effective communication was also emphasized, not so much in the fact of showing projects, but being able to communicate back and forth between what they were able to do with solving their problems, and maybe going and critiquing someone else's problems with using effective terminology. The standards focus was on substantive knowledge. So let's go ahead and talk about the assessment portion. So under assessments, I struggled a little bit. The new standards are going to be assessed by the new Ohio State test. So all of the documents that I was able to review for this analysis are all in draft form. So the documents that I pulled up said draft on them. So everything's not finalized or clear yet, but the only thing we do know is that the standards will be assessed by the new Ohio State test. The model curriculum document states that not a full curriculum is presented and assessments are not provided, and they do not give a timeline for the pacing or time allotted for sections, and sequencing is not provided in any of these documents. What they do provide is what I've stated before, is examples for the classroom, connections between mathematical topics, and common misconceptions that teachers can identify with their students. So it was a little difficult, as I stated, to really critique the assessment portion, as they don't really give you a whole lot to play with there. So my critique of the Algebra 1 Ohio Learning Standards, it does remind you as a quilt with the curriculum that I was able to go ahead and look at. You have your standards, they're separated into major sections of one math topic at a time, and they're kind of pieced together to go ahead and make one coherent course. Each section does relate to the next, but each topic presented, is separated. But like I said, the documents are in drafts, but even though it wasn't a draft, everything was clear. The descriptions were clear of the standards. The organization was great. They even provided a glossary at the end of the document with common terminology, which I thought was really great. If you weren't sure exactly how to word a topic for students, they did provide you with a definition. Bloom's taxonomy, like I said previously, was used throughout every document that I analyzed, which was really great. So they were from different levels of knowledge, comprehension, application, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. The scope is evident throughout the documents. It's continuation of content in more depth. That was definitely evident throughout. And also spiraling was evident. The concepts are repeated, but at more sophisticated levels. So the graphic that I have on this slide just kind of helps emphasize that spiraling that was occurring in math. Maybe not particularly Algebra 1, but in math in general. If you start with addition and you build on with subtraction, multiplication, and division, and so on, you're going to continue to use those skills throughout each level of math that you go through. You're just going to be doing different things with them. So, with addition, you may be applying those now to expressions where before you were just adding whole numbers. Also, this was a subject isolation course. Problem solving was evident throughout the standards and the master curriculum documents. It does list instructional strategies. The explanations listed discuss particular problem-solving skills such as interpreting information and evaluating problems. And the content was developmentally appropriate for high school students as well as 8th grade students. You can take Algebra 1 in 8th grade depending on what level of math that you are on. And also this, is based that this is provided as an option at your school. The content is measured against big principles that are considered the critical areas. So these areas include relationships between quantities and reasoning with equations, linear and exponential relationships, descriptive statistics, expressions and equations, and quadratic functions and modeling. The standards are built around the standards of mathematical practice. And this includes making sense of problems and persevering in solving them, reason abstractly and quantitatively, construct viable arguments, and critique the reasoning of others, model with mathematics, use appropriate tools strategically, attend to precision, and look for and make use of structure, and look for and express regularity and repeated reasoning. To further this critique, I feel that more resources and examples of assessments would be beneficial for educators, especially new teachers that are just kind of thrown in, with your classroom, with your students. Maybe more beneficial. Maybe this will come in time as everything, like I said, was in draft form and they're in the process of completing revisions currently and implementing them. So maybe in the future, some more resources like units, lessons, and assessments would be available. I also feel that locating the information could have been made a little easier. It took me a while to locate several different documents. They were not all in the same location, which could get very confusing if you weren't sure to keep on digging to find this information. Also, when looking at a couple of the documents, particularly with the model curriculum, there was 2 documents there. And the first document listed was kind of set up like a curriculum map, but it didn't list any of the resources. It just said that it was in draft and they weren't located in that document yet. But then when I went and clicked on the next document, it had all of the previous information and it had resources in there. So I think some revision on the web page would be beneficial and not as confusing for educators. But all in all, the curriculum was as I expected it to be, with the standards based on the Common Core, and everything was very clear and easy to read. All right, so I have a couple resources that I used throughout this presentation. A lot more were used in the actual document of my curriculum analysis that I created. But I hope that you have a great day. And thank you so much for listening to my presentation.